I used to think the best part of marriage was the soundtrack, weekday coffee drips, keys in the bowl, the soft squeak of the back door when one of us forgot to oil the hinge. Ordinary, reliable notes that told me everything was okay. I'm Nate, 37, project manager for a municipal utilities contractor. My wife, Amber, handled accounts at a mid-sized marketing firm. We were never flashy, but we paid the mortgage on time, argued about paint colors instead of money, and sent birthday cards early because we kept them in a drawer ready to go. That's the marriage I believed I was in, until the night the quiet changed shape. A bid review meeting took me 2 hours out of town, where it was supposed to. The client moved it to Zoom at the last minute, after I'd already left. I could have checked into a motel and called a wash, but I hate wasting time. I turned the truck around, grabbed drive-thru coffee, and headed home, planning to surprise Amber with takeout and a movie. The house looked the same from the street, porch light on, her car tucked neatly into the driveway. Inside, the air had that lavender-clean smell she liked, and somewhere upstairs our bedroom door clicked shut. I set the keys in the bowl and felt my chest tighten with a certainty that didn't have words. You know how you can tell the difference between a door closing and a door being pushed closed quietly? It was the second kind. I took a breath and walked to the bottom of the stairs. Voices. Not a movie, not a podcast. Laughter, then hushed, then a tone I had never heard from my wife that made the floorboards tilt. A different version of me might have stomped up there, kicked the door, turned the house into a headline. Instead, my jaw brain clicked on, document don't detonate. I backed away, went to the living room, and set my phone on the mantle angled toward the hallway. No hidden cams, no spyware. Just the doorbell camera already covering the entry and my phone recording ambient sound if anyone came. Down. I sat on the couch, heart hammering so hard I felt in my teeth, and stared at the blank TV until the house went quiet again. The bedroom door opened. Soft feet, a low chuckle, voices drifting toward the stairs. My wife's boss, Michael Cartwright, stepped into view first. I'd met him at a holiday party. Polished, perfect hair, handshake that felt like he practiced it. He wore a suit jacket over a t-shirt like he wanted you to know he was casual on purpose. Amber followed, cardigan thrown over a dress she didn't wear to dinner with me. When she saw me on the couch, her smile skidded and fell. Nate, she said, like she was tasting whether I was real. You weren't supposed to be. Meeting went virtual, I said. My voice surprised me. It was calm, like I'd already rehearsed. I came home. Michael's hand floated up, half apology, half defense. This is a misunderstanding, he began, the way a man does when he's used to controlling rooms. Tell your wife that, I said. He blinked. Excuse me. Your wife? I repeated steady. Elaine. She's on the PDA at Ridgeview Elementary. Likes lemon bars. Wears a silver bracelet with 3 charms. 1 for each kid. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'd paid attention over years of company holiday chatter. I looked at Amber. I'm going to sleep on the couch. You can have the bedroom tonight. In the morning, there will be a list on the kitchen table. We're going to handle this like adults who remember paperwork exists. Amber's eyes flashed shame, fear, anger at being denied a scene. I couldn't tell. Nate, please. I'm not yelling, I said, standing. I'm not throwing anyone out. But this is my home. You, I added to Michael, are going to leave now. If you don't, I'll call Elaine and invite her over in person to help us all misunderstand together. He paled in a way expensive moisturizers can't fix. I'll go, he said quickly, and grabbed his jacket. He paused at the door like a man who thought an apology would turn himself noble. I'm sorry, he offered, as if we were exchanging parking spots. Tell that to your HR file, I said, and opened the door. He stepped in the night and disappeared into a car that pulled up quicker than coincidence. Amber stood in the entry, holding the banister like she was seasick. Nate, please, I can explain, she tried again. You don't owe me an essay, I said. You owe me honesty. But tonight you owe me space. I walked past her, grabbed a pillow from the hall closet, and lay down on the couch like it was any other Tuesday. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep much either. The ceiling had a tiny crack above the fan I'd never noticed before. By dawn, I knew every inch of it. At 6, I made coffee, set a legal pad on the table, and wrote next steps at the top. Clarity likes bullet points. I called my bank and froze the joint credit card we use for discretionary stuff, not groceries or the mortgage. I set up text alerts for large transactions on our accounts. I emailed a family lawyer recommended by a coworker. The subject line read, "Consultation, no drama, just facts." Then I wrote a short note to Amber on a sticky. "There's coffee. Sit when you're ready." She came down with mascara shadows under her eyes and sat across from me like a student about to learn bad news she already knew. "I never meant," she started. "I'm sure you didn't," I said. "Intentions are cheaper than electricity. Here's the plan. We separate accounts by end of day. We make a schedule for the house until we figure out who stays and who goes. We do counseling if you want to say things to someone who helps people say hard things. And we contact HR, both of us, not to destroy anyone, to put daylight where it belongs." She flinched. "If you tell HR, I'll lose my job." "You might," I said, "but you chose your boss over our marriage in my bed. There are rules for that, for good reasons." She covered her face with her hands and sobbed once, a small, surprised sound. "I've been so lonely," she said through her fingers. "You've been working late, and he made me feel seen." "I see you," I said softly. "I've seen you for years. But I'm not competing with someone who showers you with attention in the time he should be writing performance reviews." The doorbell camera pinged, my neighbor dropping off a package early, and the sound made the room feel more real. I slid a sheet of paper across the table. Usernames, balances, the autopay list. "Here's what's frozen and what isn't," I said. "The mortgage stays on. The utilities stay on. I'm not punitive. I am protective." Her shoulders shook again. "You're being so calm," she said, almost angry at it. "It's not calm," I answered. "It's control of my end of the rope." By 10, I'd spoken with the lawyer. By noon, I'd moved my clothes to the guest room and boxed her things that had migrated there over the years. Scarves, chargers, a stack of magazines that always made it from mail to coffee table, but not to the recycling. I labeled the box Amber, bedroom. Names help when feelings try to run the show. In the afternoon, I drafted 2 emails, one to Amber's HR director, one to Michael's company's ethics inbox. I kept them boring, dates, times, facts. No adjectives. I attached nothing explicit and offered to provide doorbell timestamps only if requested. I CC'd my attorney and hit send. Then I called Elaine. I didn't know her well enough to have her cell, so I left a message at the number listed on the PDA site. "Hi, Elaine. This is Nate Coleman, Amber's husband. I'm sorry to call you like this. Could you give me a call about something important?" It felt like dropping a stone in a well and waiting to hear a splash. She called back in 20 minutes. "No small talk." "I'm listening," she said. "I'm not going to say anything ugly," I began. "I would want someone to tell me. Last night, I found my wife with your husband in our home." There was a breath, sharp, then measured. "Thank you," she said. "I appreciate a mirror. I didn't ask for more than I appreciate a lie did." Then, more practical, "I'll handle my side. You handle yours. If HR needs corroboration, I'll provide it." We set the phone down like a truce flag. That night, Amber slept in the bedroom. I took the couch again because the guest room smelled like paint and change, and I wasn't ready for either. In the morning, she came down in sweats and said she'd emailed HR with a personal disclosure. She placed her badge on the table like it was an apology. "They said they'll be in touch." "They will," I said. The next 2 days moved like a legal pad. The lawyer filed for a legal separation. The bank split the joint savings into 2 accounts based on deposits. My boss, who noticed everything and pretended he noticed nothing, offered a flexible schedule without making it sound like charity. I changed the Wi-Fi password because boundaries are clearer when your router agrees. Amber booked a hotel for a week and promised not to take anything that wasn't clearly hers. I walked through the house with her while she packed, so we didn't turn nostalgia into litigation. On Thursday, HR responded. Both companies had open investigations. Amber was placed on leave. Michael, pending review. The emails were sterile and careful, but you could hear the gears turning. That evening, Elaine texted, "Meeting with my attorney went well. Thanks for the courtesy of not making a scene. If you need a statement later, ask." I replied, "I'm sorry for what this cost you." I appreciate your kindness. Friday morning, a courier knocked and handed me an envelope. Temporary orders from family court. No drama. Finances to remain stable. No disposal of assets without consent. Counseling recommended. Hearing date scheduled. I added it to a tidy stack in a desk drawer. Paper is heavier when you let it sit all over the house. By Saturday, the story had spread the way stories always do in a mid-sized city. Our neighbor, who has a black belt in porch intelligence, caught me taking out the trash and tilted her head. "You okay, honey?" she asked, and meant it. "We're fine," I said. "Thanks for checking." That answer was both true and not, which is how truth behaves when it's still cooling. Sunday afternoon, my phone lit with an unknown number. It was Michael's wife again. "I've decided to file," she said without preface. "I'll be subpoenaing his work records. HR tells me your note helped them open the door. Thank you for keeping it factual." "I don't want a war," I said. "Neither do I," she said. "I want a clean table." That night, as I set out 2 mugs, even though only one would get used, I realized the house still had our soundtrack, just different verses. The hinge still squeaked. The fridge still hummed. The dog down the block still barked at 7 when his owner jogged past. My life hadn't exploded. It had pivoted. Monday morning, the last thing I expected happened. I got a calendar invite titled Cartwright versus Cartwright, status conference, witness list. My name was on it, along with Coleman versus Coleman, pretrial, witness availability. 2 cases for lawyers, 1 judge. Not today. Next month. I clicked accept because that's what you do with the parts of the story you can't avoid. The morning of the first hearing arrived faster than the ink dried. Amber texted, "Please be decent in court. I can't lose everything." I wrote back, "I'll be decent. I'll also be honest." Then I put on my one suit, the funeral/wedding one, and drove to the courthouse where you can smell coffee, fear, and copier toner in equal parts. I wasn't there to give a speech. I was there to confirm facts. I didn't know who else would be there. I didn't know the moment would come when the bailiff would open the side door and a woman with a neat bun and a folder under her arm would step in, scan the room, meet my eyes, and nod once before looking calmly at Michael. I didn't know she'd sit down behind the prosecution table in his case and quietly uncap her pen. I didn't know yet what she planned to say. Courtrooms don't sound like TV. They hum. Paper shuffles. Shoes whisper. A bailiff clears his throat like a metronome. I sat behind my attorney, Harper, with a yellow pad and a pen I didn't need. Amber was 2 rows over, eyes on her hands. Across the aisle, Michael sat with a man in a navy suit and a jaw that looked permanently clenched. Then the side door opened and Elaine Cartwright stepped in. She wasn't dramatic about it. No sunglasses, no theatrics. Neat bun, gray blazer, a folder tucked close. She scanned the room, met my eyes long enough to give a small nod, then took a seat behind the table marked for her side. The judge entered, we stood, we sat. He called the domestic calendar. First, a status hearing for Cartwright versus Cartwright. Second, temporary orders for Coleman versus Coleman. 2 cases, 1 hour. A town's worth of rumors squeezed into a rectangle with flags at the front. The Cartwright matter went first. Elaine's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we're prepared to make a brief proffer for temporary relief. We will call Mrs. Cartwright solely for foundation and preservation." The judge raised an eyebrow as if he didn't hate efficiency. "Proceed." Elaine took the stand, swore in, palms steady. Her lawyer kept the questions boring on purpose. "Your name?" "Elaine Maris Cartwright." "Marital status?" "Married to Michael Cartwright." She glanced at him one time, like checking a box. "Do you recognize this exhibit?" Counsel held up a sheaf of papers. "Yes," she said. "These are American Express statements for a corporate card issued to my husband. What's highlighted? Charges coded hospitality at the Regal Suites, 5 occasions over 3 months. And these emails? Calendar invites sent from my husband's account to an outside email referencing strategy dinners on those dates. Do you recognize the outside address?" "Yes." She said my wife's address like it burned going out. Amber Coleman. The room pulled tighter, the way rooms do when everyone pretends not to be listening harder. Her counsel didn't moralize. "Mrs. Cartwright, Did you also bring an audio file? Yes. Describe it. A voicemail my husband left on our home line while driving. He thought he'd hung up after telling someone he was untouchable and that HR can't do anything if she won't talk. He said Amber's name. He said he'd handle any fallout. She didn't look at him. Our landline records and the file metadata reflect the date and time. Move to admit for preservation only, not for truth of the matter asserted, her counsel said. Michael's attorney rose. We object. Foundation, hearsay, prejudice. The judge listened to both sides the way a good teacher listens to two children who can both technically read. It comes in for limited purposes at this stage, he ruled. We'll sort the rest at the evidentiary hearing. Temporary support shall be set. Preservation order is granted as to the phone, the card records, and any electronic communications in the party's possession. He peered over his glasses. Mr. Cartwright, you are admonished not to destroy or alter anything that might be relevant. I say this to everyone. Consider yourself everyone. Michael's jaw flexed. His lawyer tugged his sleeve. Elaine's counsel sat. She stepped down and returned to her seat with the same controlled breath she'd brought in. No bloating. Just daylight. Then it was our turn. Coleman versus Coleman. The clerk called. We moved to the front. Harper handled the talking. That's what I hired her for. Your Honor, we're seeking temporary orders maintaining the status quo and exclusive use of the residence to my client, Mr. Coleman, with a mutual restraint on disparagement and asset dissipation. There are no children. We have stipulated exhibits. Bank summaries showing Mr. Coleman's freeze of discretionary joint credit and an email from Mrs. Coleman to her employer disclosing the relationship with her supervisor. Amber's counsel stood. We don't contest finances, and we agree to a mutual non-disparagement. We request that Mrs. Coleman be permitted to retrieve personal items on a set schedule. We object to any exclusive use language that resembles eviction. Harper nodded. We're not attempting to lock Mrs. Coleman out of her own property interest. We're asking for practical distance and a calendar to avoid conflict. The judge tapped his pen once, then set it down. All right. Counsel approach. The sidebar lasted 2 minutes. When they returned, he read from notes. Exclusive temporary use and possession of the marital residence will be granted to Mr. Coleman for 90 days. Mrs. Coleman may retrieve personal effects twice weekly by appointment, accompanied by a third party if either requests. Neither party shall bring overnight guests to the residence. Both parties are restrained from transferring, concealing, or dissipating assets beyond ordinary living expenses. Parties shall participate in 2 joint sessions with a court-approved counselor to discuss logistics and communication. I make no findings of fault today. Save it for the final hearing. No speeches. No pointing. Just the bones of a plan. Then came the part one hadn't planned on. The judge asked if there were any witnesses for foundation. Harper said, briefly, Your Honor, and called me. Not to relive the worst night, but to confirm the clean parts. State your name. Nathaniel James Coleman. Mr. Coleman, did you freeze one of your joint credit cards on the morning after discovering your wife's relationship? Yes. Did you notify the bank that any unusual charges should be flagged? Yes. Did you contact your wife's employer and Mr. Cartwright's employer? Yes. What? Because what they were doing implicated workplace policies, not just vows, I said. I didn't want anyone retaliated against for saying the quiet part. Harper smiled like that answer would do. No further questions. Amber's lawyer didn't cross. The judge thanked me, and I stepped down. That could have been the end. Then the bailiff announced, third-party witness, and the HR director from Amber's company stood. She wore a navy suit and the look of someone who lives in policy manuals. Your Honor, with permission, I have a statement relevant to both matters, she said. The judge frowned. This is unusual. She nodded. So, is this morning? Yesterday afternoon, our board retained outside counsel to investigate a complaint naming Mr. Cartwright and Mrs. Coleman. At 8:14 a.m. today, following preliminary interviews and review of expense records, Mr. Cartwright's employment was terminated for cause, violations of our fraternization, retaliation, and expense policies. Mrs. Coleman was offered continued employment on a different team with pay held flat, contingent upon her cooperation with the investigation. There will be no non-disparagement gag from our side. We will be issuing a memo clarifying that no employee should fear reporting misconduct, ever. You could feel the quiet. It had weight. Even the judge paused long enough for the wall clock to intrude. Michael's attorney half stood. Your Honor. The judge lifted a hand. Counsel, seat. Director, thank you for the update. This court does not adjudicate employment disputes, but the preservation orders remain. Parties are admonished to refrain from trying this in the court of public opinion. Elaine didn't look at her husband. She looked at me. Not gratitude exactly, recognition. Someone had finally pointed the flashlight at the right spot on the floor. Afterwards, in the hallway, everyone did what hallway people do. Pretended they were checking their phones while taking each other's weather. Harper leaned in. You handled that perfectly. Facts travel better than fury. Amber approached, hands clasped, voice small. I didn't know he put hotel charges on the company card, she said. I thought she stopped. It doesn't matter what I thought. Make the right statements, I said, not unkind. Cooperate. Build something honest next. Elaine appeared on my shoulder like a person who learned a long time ago not to waste small talk. Thank you for the call, she said. I wish I'd never needed it. I wish that too, I said. She handed me an envelope. This is for your lawyer, she said. A copy of the voicemail file and my affidavit authenticating it. If you don't need it, shred it. If you do, it's there. One more thing. She turned to Amber, voice neutral. He told me I was too proper to make trouble. It was a convenient lie. You'll be asked whether you were coerced. Decide to be useful. That's all I'll say. Amber nodded once, eyes shining in a way that had nothing to do with makeup. Outside, the day had the hard blue sky our town gets after rain scrubs the air. On the courthouse steps, my boss texted, take the afternoon. The polls will still be there tomorrow. Lauren texted a photo of a cooling rack full of cookies with the caption, Victory isn't sweet, cookies are. Come home. My mother added, your father says he can fix anything except the past. He's right. Dinner at 6. On the drive home, I realized the shock in that courtroom hadn't been the HR director's announcement or even the voicemail. It was smaller and bigger. The sound a room makes when people stop pretending money can bend rules forever. The judge had looked at the facts and built rails. The grown-ups had put their names next to their choices. There's a relief in that, even when it hurts. At home, Lauren met me on the porch with a hug that didn't ask for a report. We ate cookies that didn't need a reason. I sent Harper a photo of the affidavit so she could file it with her calm little e-signature. Then I took a shower, so hot it turned thoughts into steam. That night, Amber emailed to accept the reassignment. She CC'd HR and copied me on purpose. Her note was short. I will cooperate fully. I am sorry for the harm I caused. I'm starting over with the truth. I didn't reply. I filed it where it belonged. A week later, an official letter arrived setting our final hearing and inviting us to mediation. I said yes, because court is for orders. Mediation is for common sense. We sat in a room with a neutral, and for 4 hours, we divided a life with colored sticky notes and a calculator. Notre office. No victory laps. Amber kept the car she loved and the espresso machine. I kept the house and the dog-eared paperbacks. We sold the extra TV to a neighbor and split the cash. We wrote down a rule we could live with. If either of us ever started rewriting the story for sport, we'd send each other a single-line email, remember the rails, and go quiet again. There was one last court date, short, patient, and nothing like television. The judge read the agreement into the record, asked if we understood and agreed, and signed. As he handed the file to the clerk, his pen paused. Mr. Coleman, he said, which startled me because judges don't usually say your name unless you've caused trouble. Ordinary is underrated. I've learned that, I said. Outside, the sky was indecisive about rain. Elaine was on the steps, a coat over one arm, phone in the other. She nodded as I passed. You look lighter, she said. I am, I said. You? Getting there, she said. He's making arrangements. That's his to manage. The kids and I have our own rails. I wished her well. She tucked the phone away and walked down the steps like a person who knew where she was going and didn't need anyone to watch. Back home, Lauren had set out 2 mugs and a newspaper. The front page talked about budgets and a festival in the park, and buried below the fold, a single-column update. Local firm announces policy changes after internal review. No names. Just a reminder that paperwork sometimes does what shouting can't. We sat on the couch, legs touching, the quiet warm again. What happens now? Lauren asked. Now, I said. We rehinge the squeaky door, label the breaker box like a civilized household, and make dinner. She smiled. Ordinary. On purpose, I said. There's a third part to this story, but it doesn't involve a gavel. It's about a phone call I didn't expect, a job offer I almost missed because it sounded too simple, and a small, decent invitation that turned revenge into something better. Repair. If you want it, I'll tell you what happened when Michael asked to meet, why I said yes, and the one sentence I chose that let the door close without slamming. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, months after the final hearing, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hey, Nate, it's Michael. His voice was slower, rougher. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just wanted to apologize. There was a long pause. I could hear wind on his end, maybe from a park or parking lot. I lost everything, he continued. Elaine left. The kids barely talk to me. My company's gone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed to tell you, you were right. I thought I was untouchable. Turns out, ordinary men like you are the ones who actually live right. I didn't say much. Just, I hope you learn from it. I already have, he said quietly. Take care of yourself. Then he hung up. I sat there for a long time, the silence heavier than anger. Because in that moment, I realized revenge wasn't the courtroom win, or the scandal, or even the peace I found afterward. It was hearing him say those words and knowing I'd moved on long before he did. Later that evening, Lauren came home with a bag of groceries and asked what I was thinking about. I smiled. How good life feels when it's boring. She laughed, handed me a tomato, and said, then let's make boring dinner. As we cooked, I looked around the kitchen, the couch, legs touching, the quiet warm again. What happens now? Lauren asked. Now, I said. We rehinge the squeaky door, label the breaker box like a civilized household, and make dinner. She smiled. Ordinary. On purpose, I said. There's a third part to this story, but it doesn't involve a gavel. It's about a phone call I didn't expect, a job offer I almost missed because it sounded too simple, and a small, decent invitation that turned revenge into something better. Repair. If you want it, I'll tell you what happened when Michael asked to meet, why I said yes, and the one sentence I chose that let the door close without slamming. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, months after the final hearing, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hey, Nate, it's Michael. His voice was slower, rougher. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just wanted to apologize. There was a long pause. I could hear wind on his end, maybe from a park or parking lot. I lost everything, he continued. Elaine left. The kids barely talk to me. My company's gone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed to tell you, you were right. I thought I was untouchable. Turns out, ordinary men like you are the ones who actually live right. I didn't say much. Just, I hope you learn from it. I already have, he said quietly. Take care of yourself. Then he hung up. I sat there for a long time, the silence heavier than anger. Because in that moment, I realized revenge wasn't the courtroom win, or the scandal, or even the peace I found afterward. It was hearing him say those words and knowing I'd moved on long before he did. Later that evening, Lauren came home with a bag of groceries and asked what I was thinking about. I smiled. How good life feels when it's boring. She laughed, handed me a tomato, and said, then let's make boring dinner. As we cooked, I looked around the kitchen, the